Crisanti, and today we'll be discussing Etude number 24. Before we begin the instruction, I would first like to note the required music that you will need. The piece is Etude 24, found on page 26 of Musical Studies for the Intermediate Snare Drummer by Garwood Whaley. I will show this on the screen so you can reference it during the instruction. Once again, please remember to subscribe, and if any questions or comments, leave them below, or perhaps email me at crisantidrum@gmail.com. That's CRISANTIDRUM@gmail.com. Now on to the instruction. This happens to be the Etude chosen, one of three, by the Illinois Education Association, ILMEA, Illinois Music Education Association. Okay, so it's basically page 26, and it's going to be measures 1 to 22. Now, I really recommend that you let your band director know, or your private instructor, that you're interested in learning these audition material, because it will just make you better as a player. And if anything, you're going to get a lot of practicing in, and you'll reach certain goals. Okay. Now, regarding the snare drum etude, number one, check your equipment. Okay, make sure that the snare is nice and tight. The whole idea is getting a good sound, right? So if you get a good sound, you're going to obviously sound good. So make sure the snares are tight and crisp, and the snare drum is tuned properly. And again, your private instructor or your band director can help you through the process. Okay, one thing I want to talk about too is the adjustment, how high the snare drum should come up. Now, I've seen contests where drummers are leaning down or really too high, but really the appropriate height would be waist level. So waist level, pretty much flat, and then your shoulders are down, very important, and your elbows are in, so that you're real comfortable playing. Okay, so once you get that together, obviously there's different sticks out there that you probably use, but I prefer for the snare drum the all-purpose general all-purpose Vic Firth sticks are really good for this etude. Today I'll be playing Innovative Percussion by Lalo Davila, and again, that's a nice snare drum stick. You want something that you could control, not too heavy, not too light. Okay, now let's take a look at the part. Okay, it's very important that you number each measure. So we only happen to play to 1 to 22. So you got to put a bracket there, but I do measure them. Put the numbers there so that you pretty much, if you're having problems with 1 or 2 measures, you could jot them down and practice them separately. Another thing is dynamics. Circle all dynamics and make sure that you're not playing too loud, not too soft, and be creative. That's the main thing. Okay. Another thing is to have a metronome at your side. I happen to have one in my ear, and we'll talk about later how to practice with the metronome. Okay. What else? Oh, grip. Okay. There's certain grips that I see drummers play. I'm familiar more with the match grip. That means both of your hands are pretty much face down. So if I didn't have sticks in my hand, I would just put a snare drum like this, correct? So I would put the snare in between my thumb and my index finger, right? And that's why they call it match, because both hands are exactly the same. Okay? There are different other grips that you might see or you may have played. One is called traditional grip, where you hold your left hand out, 3 fingers, put the stick right between it, okay? And put these fingers over, and your right hand is held like normal in a match grip position, and it kind of looks like this. All right? This goes way back to the Revolutionary War when drums were slanted on the side and on a rope, and so the drummers had to play this way. So you still see the traditional method used in marching bands and jazz bands. So that's one way. So you have what? Match grip, traditional grip. Okay. There's actually one more that I'll be using for timpani later. It's called the French grip, which you keep your thumbs up. I really don't recommend this grip for snare because it's really hard to control. So I would say the most comfortable grip, of course it's all individualized, but I would say it would be the matched grip. Okay? All right. So once we get all that in place, going back and looking over the part, you'll notice that I write in stickings. Very, very important. Because what I'm going to be using here today is called concert sticking. Now, concert sticking means that you're pretty much leading a lot with your right hand, for me, my right hand, and then each beat is pretty much on the right. So, for example, or these are figures you'll see, as we'll talk about as we go on. So we call that concert sticking, where you pretty much play a lot of rights. That doesn't mean it's louder than the left. It just means it's more even. You're getting a nice tone. The other type of sticking is what? Rudimental. Rudimental means that you'll be switching every stick, every note. And again, that's okay to use if you can control dynamics, of course, and make each note even. But I would really recommend the concert sticking. Okay. Now, rhythms. Let's talk about rhythms here. There are some complicated measures here that we'll address. One of them is, actually there's a bunch of these measures that have 3 notes rhythms, right? So what is a 3-note rhythm? Well, it's a triplet. It could be nice and even. Or it could be 2 16th notes and an 8. Or an 8th note followed by 2 16ths. Bum, ba, ba. One way I do practice this is I'll play 2 8th notes as a check pattern and then actually play the 3-note structure rhythm. So basically the first one would be 1 and 2 triplet. Okay, the next one will be 1 and 2 EN, 1 and 2 EN. Final is 1 and 2 end up. Now, taking a look at the music, let's point out some of these musical examples. Measure 5, you have 1 and 2 triplet, 3 E and a roll, and there I'll use a 9-stroke. So you have, here it is again. Now without the roughs and the rolls, it's simply 1 and 2 triplet. Right? So the idea is not to rush that triplet, not to play it. Right? Alright, that's so uneven. So you got to count it 1 and 2 triplet. Okay, now let's look at measures 15 and 17. 15 and 17 are basically the same. You have 1 and a 2 triplet, 3 and a 4 triplet. As you can see, here it is. 1. You notice the concert sticking. Okay, another example of 3-note structures are what? Measure 20. You have triplet followed by 2 16th notes and an 8th. So you'll count that 1 triplet, 2 EN, 3 triplet, 4 EN. Okay, so there you have all the complicated rhythms, and again, you always want to, by looking over the part, these are things you should determine before you actually play and practice them through it with the metronome, making sure that your metronome is, clicking on the tempo and you have the feel for it. Okay, now let's talk about the technique. The main techniques here are rolls, right? Everybody loves to roll. You're going to have 3 types of rolls here. You have a 5-stroke, and again, I'll be doing them all closed. 5-stroke. You have a 9-stroke, 1 E and a 2. Then you have a 17-stroke row. 1 E end, a 2 E end, a stop. Left hand. Okay, so now let's look at some musical examples that would have that. So for the 5-stroke, right, if you look at measure 3 and measure 4, there's 2 types of 5-strokes, on the offbeat and on the beat. So the offbeat meaning on the and. So for example, measure 3, 1, 3. That's all you need for that 5. So it's 1, of course practicing, which, as we all know our rudiments, is called a rough. Alright, so you got again number 3. Okay, so number 4, measure 4, has a 5-stroke on the beat. 1 E and you count that. So that's the key of playing crisp rows, is being able to what? Count them out. So number 4 will be counted 1 E and 2 triplet 3. Rest. Rest. Okay? So that's pretty much your 5-stroke row. Then if you jump down even further, I believe it's measure 21. There's a whole bunch of them. Measure 21. Okay, so there you have a series of them in a row. You have, right? You actually have 5 in a row from 21 into 22. You have 1. Again. Now this also happens at measure 10. You have 2 5-stroke rows in a row, 2 5s in a row, 1 E and, 2 E and, 3 E and, a 4 E and. Okay, so there you have it, your 5-stroke rows, a bunch of them here. Okay, now let's talk about the 9-stroke rows. Okay, it happens to be in measure 1, where you have a quarter note tied to another quarter note. There I would count it, what? 1 E and a 2. Right, so I finish that measure. So it's, okay, that's measure 1. If you jump down again, they're all over. Let's see, measure 5. Measure 5, you have 4 E and up. The row will be on the 4th beat. So you have. It's okay to practice it over and over. Okay, without the rough there. Where else? Let's see. A 9-stroke row happens at 13. 1 E and a 2 triplet, right? Well, I'm sorry, 1 E and a 2 and. Here it is again. Okay, and 19 is also good. In measure 19, you have 1 E and a 2 E and. There you're playing just straight 16th notes. So it's. Okay, it's important not to accent when you're done with the row. In other words, not. The key is nice and even. And I always thought that rows sound better, when you play them lighter, as opposed to crushing on the drum. I usually like to grip my stick a little tighter, and the rows happen all by itself. Okay, now the last one, 17-stroke row. Okay, so here on the 17, that's measures 11, right, and 12. There you're going from 1 E and to 2 E and to 3, 4 triplet, and I put a left on the triplet, 4 triplet, and 1 E and to 2 E and to 3, 4 E and. So here's 11 and 12. Here it is again. Okay, now measure 14 was also a 17-stroke row on the 3rd and 4th beat, but you have what? A 9-stroke Your first beat, 1 E enda, 2 E enda, and you roll. So here's measure 14. Here's it again. Okay. Now, what I like to do, again, this takes a lot of time to practice, but once you learn the language here, it works just about any snare drum piece. Now I like to play through the piece, finally. And I'm going to play different tempos. Now you notice that it says 96 to 108. Now we should never ever play faster than the original tempo of 108. That's the fastest. And again, if you do that, it just doesn't sound right. The way the composer's written this is that these rhythms are precisely done at the tempo that is given. However, when you first practice it, I would practice it a lot slower. Again, using a metronome is crucial. You have to use a metronome to keep your steady tempo. I usually use my earphones, and you could basically lock in. Okay, so here is this piece from 1 to 22 at 70. We're going to go to 70 beats per minute here, and we'll probably do that really, and I'll give you 4 clicks so you can hear that. Here we go. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's 1 to 22 at a quarter note equal 70, which is slower, and feel free to even do it slower than that, just to get the right rhythms and feel. Okay, now I'm going to do 96. I'm going to go up to this is where he suggests you play it. Actually, it's going to be the slowest tempo that you play it. It's going to be 96. Setting a metronome at 96, I'll give you the 4 beats before we play it. Here we go. You got to get the feel. Here it is. 1. Which is pretty much a performance tempo. There's not much of a difference. Well, it goes 96 to 108. So I'll just play it at 108 now. This is the very fastest you should do it. So 108's right about here. No faster. And again, if you play it faster, it sounds all crushed together and the phrases don't really work. Or the roughs for that matter, trying to make it, all nice and even. So here we go. This is your last performance as far as the performance tempo, and we'll go right through it. Here we go. 1, 2, a big difference from when I started at 70 and I played up to the fastest. And it's so hard just to go, okay, let's play. Right? You're going to make all kind of mistakes if you play it at the fastest tempo. So again, practice in steps. So let's kind of review. Again, look over the part, number the measures, circle the dynamics, make sure you have a metronome to practice with the tempo that's desired, right? Also practice those rhythms, triplets, 16th notes, 2/16ths and 8/2/16ths. Practice your rolls, make sure your snare drum's tuned okay, and I guarantee you you're going to have fun with this etude. So for now, have a great practice and we'll see you again.